I really hope some of my fans will consider buying this book, Justice on Haywire. I'd really appreciate it. And I think that you would enjoy and get something out of reading about the stories in here. Now, what causes justice to go haywire? A lot of things do. And oddly enough, one of the things that can cause justice to go haywire are legitimate social concerns. Chapters 2 and 3 deal with these. The Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle case, the murder of Mary Fagan, and lynching of Leo Frank. These men, Roscoe Arbuckle and Leo Frank, ended up being scapegoated. But they were scapegoated because of very legitimate concerns with the sexual exploitation of young females. Women in Hollywood, way back in the 1920s, 1910s, 1920s, when Hollywood was just getting started, were often subjected to the notorious casting couch, just as they are now. Okay. Harvey Weinstein is not, is not unprecedented. There were men like him way back in over a century ago. Roscoe Arbuckle wasn't like that, but he ended up getting paying the penalty for men who were. He ended up being scapegoated because of it. Mary Fagan was murdered, and there was an outpouring of grief about her murder. And why was that? She wasn't somebody famous. She was just a 13-year-old factory girl. But the problem was that the society as a whole was moving from rural to urban, and a lot of the young females were in a position where their families could no longer watch them as closely. And they were often under the authority of adult males who would take advantage of them. And that's why there was an outpouring of grief over her murder, because so many of the poor people saw her as representing what could happen to their sisters, what could happen to their daughters. Okay. Another thing, of course, that leads to murder. Well, it can lead to murder too, but justice going haywire is prejudice. And there are different types of prejudice. One of them, of course, is racial prejudice. And my chapter 4 is about the notorious case of the Scottsboro Boys. Young black men falsely accused of raping white women, and who basically grew up in jails and prisons for rapes that never happened because of the ideology of white racism. It also anti-Semitism played a role in the Leo Frank case. And it also played a role in something I deal with in here, the Jonathan Pollard case. And Jonathan Pollard stands out from these other cases because he was guilty. But I do believe that his sentence is really inexplicable. Unless you think, because nobody else has ever been treated as harshly for spying for an ally as Jonathan Pollard was for spying for Israel. And then there's also the Alice Crimmins case of a mother accused of murdering her 2 children. She was eventually convicted. But there was always a feeling by a lot of people that she was not treated fairly, because there was prejudice against her because she fit into a kind of a femme fatale stereotype. And she was heavily made up, and she was also promiscuous. And that a specific prejudice against sexual adventuring on the part of females may have led to justice going haywire. Anyway, I do hope that you will read this. Buy it and read it. I'd like it to discuss it with anybody who does buy it and read it. And I would thank you very much if you do.